This is the Smart Buildings Academy podcast with Phil Zito, episode 352. Hey folks, Phil Zito here, and welcome to episode 352 of the Smart Buildings Academy podcast. In this episode, we are going to be discussing culture. We're going to talk about why your team and business culture matter. Now, I know a Smart Buildings podcast talking about culture, it may seem a little bit not aligned, right? But if you look at what's going on in the workforce right now with people leaving, people checking out and not even really giving effort, a lot of that comes down to culture. And if we look at employee retention, which is critical, especially now with, anywhere from 100 to 200,000 people short in the building automation industry on a month-to-month basis, depending on who you believe and who you listen to. Well, in this episode, we're going to talk about culture. We're going to talk about how do you build up culture? Why does it matter? And then we're going to talk through some use cases related to culture as well. Now, I know the times have been bouncing around. Normally, we do this at 12 p.m. on Monday, Wednesday, Friday Pacific time. But we were having some tech issues. It figures I go on vacation, on a camping trip with my son for Boy Scouts and come back and none of the tech wants to work. Just kind of how things go. But let's dive in. So first off, what is culture? Well, culture is essentially the expectations of people within an organization. I really should have my wife teaching this because this is her bailiwick, being a professional therapist and having an education in this. But, I can teach you all through osmosis, which, culture, when I like to think about it, it's, what are the unwritten rules about how people interact? What are kind of the expectations of the team that are unspoken to one another? And as I look at our organization, we have a high level of trust. We have a high level of transparency. We have an approach with one another of we have a lot of fun, but at the same time, we hold each other accountable. We expect everyone to do the right thing, and we, celebrate our wins together and we celebrate our losses together. That is our culture. So you can have two different cultures within an organization, especially as you become a larger organization. You can have your team culture, which is, the individual unit, and then you can have a overriding business culture. And these sometimes can be in conflict with one another, because if you have a good leader, that leader can inspire culture and can inspire things like work satisfaction, loyalty, trust, honesty. All these things that come with a healthy culture can be inspired by that leader, even if there is no business culture or there's a toxic business culture. On the flip side, you can have a great business culture, but if you have poor leadership, then you can have a very unhealthy culture within the team. So the first thing you need to figure out is, where are you trying to address culture? And most of the time you want to try to address it at the business level. And then if you properly address it at the business level, that should begin to flush people who aren't aligned with your culture out of the business. And if you build it into your hiring practices and things like that, I'm just going to take a sip of water. Then what will happen is you will begin to hire people for that culture. Now, like I said, I know this doesn't seem like a topic that's very pertinent to building automation, but it is very pertinent to building automation because we are in a kind of crossroads. You have folks who are in their 50s and 60s, and they're still working in the business, but they're also starting to leave the business. And then you have people who are in their 20s and 30s who are starting to enter the business and who are starting to move up in the business. I'm going to take another sip of water. Excuse me. So what's going on is you have these folks who come from two totally different upbringings, right? You have one upbringing, and then you have another upbringing in these two generations, and they are coming, I don't want to say against one another, but they are having to find a way to work together. And this is where business culture can kind of sit on top and act as that kind of guidance to help these people who are, of two different upbringings come together. And that's really important. So why does culture matter? And then we'll go into how to establish it, and then we'll go through some examples of good and bad culture. So culture matters because of organizational trust. If you want to grow your business, I was listening to Ray Dalio's Principles audiobook over the weekend. And what I was taking from that was their transparency and the organizational trust that they were able to build. Organizational trust does not mean everyone holds hands, kumbaya, no one ever gets upset with anyone. What it means is that I can trust that you mean well, you can trust that I mean well, and we can have a transparent conversation without all the BS and without all the, kind of beating around the bush. We could be direct and say, you didn't perform here, you did perform here. And that organizational trust will cascade throughout the organization. And that allows you to solve problems faster, right? That allows you to actually get to the issue, set aside the ego, figure out what the issue is, and solve the issue. That results in better quality work, that reduces turnover, and it's just simply more enjoyable. Being able to tell someone, you didn't do this well, you did this well, and have them have enough organizational trust that they can say, okay, this person means well for me. That is a lot different than many businesses I've worked in the past, where people were worried, they didn't feel they could be transparent. So how do you go about establishing this? Well, you have to have a clear vision, right? And how do you establish a vision? How I like to establish a vision is to sit down, list out my vision. This is what I did when I founded this company. List out my vision, and then I went to people who I trusted and I said, poke holes in it. Like, what am I missing here? And then based on that, they were able to be like, okay, well, this isn't realistic, this is realistic, etc. And, that isn't clear, this is clear. And so our vision to be the single source provider for all technologies in the built environment, right, by 2030, that is our vision for this business. It's an aggressive vision, but a single provider for training. I should be more clear. We're not going to provide products, but our provider for training services and development services to all the different technologies within the built environment. That is our vision. It's very clear. Everything we do is made, every decision we make is made based on that vision, right? Then we have to have clear values. So the values come into play where we are sitting there and we're trying to make decisions like, okay, what decision are we going to make? And if I bring this up, of course, Slack's not working for me. Gosh, we were having a great discussion about vision in here and values in here. And we were talking about, speed to decision making, integrity, being willing to make mistakes. These are all values that we have, and they tie back to our vision, which is to grow and to do something other organizations haven't done before, which is provide online training for the built environment. So to do that, we have to be willing to make mistakes. We have to constantly be changing and adjusting. And so those values came from that. Without values and without vision, all of this is null and void. Because you will have nothing to hold people accountable to. You'll have nothing to measure by. You won't be able to make a determination if someone is or isn't living up to the values and vision of the business. I know this is kind of mercurial. It's kind of hazy. It is for me. It's something that on a at least weekly basis, I try to sit back and think about and figure out, how am I going about our vision? How are we going about our values? And then I look at my interactions with my team and I try to determine, is there an issue? Was there a scenario where someone didn't feel they trusted me? Was there a scenario where there was conflict, but it wasn't healthy? And I look at these things as a leader, and then I try to be honest with myself. And I also go to other people and I expect them to be honest to me. And then we take that feedback. Don't slack people on Saturday and Sunday, even though I feel issues are pressing. Are they pressing enough that I need to be messaging my team on Saturday and Sunday, when our value is to have a work-life balance and to have fun and enjoy? Is that really aligned with that? Also going and being transparent in our conversations. I have to really work on that on a daily basis, of going and saying, hey, you're performing poorly in this area. And doing that, especially since we're such a knit team, can feel very painful, because I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to make them feel like they're failing. So that's something that is tied to our values that I have to work on. And so you can start to see, hopefully, how this vision is supported by your values, and your values, they permeate through everything. Going and sitting there and seeing we're in a recession and saying, okay, we're in a recession. Business is great. We're making a lot of sales. We're exceeding our sales numbers. But should we cancel our company retreat and go and set all that money aside in savings, even though we're profitable? That's a decision I have to make. And then we come back to our values and we say, well, if our value is building a team, then obviously we should keep the company retreat, because that is something that's going to build the team up. So this is where all this starts to come together. So what are some examples of a BAS business? All right, let's look at service business. I'm going to take another sip of water. If integrity, and that's our number one value, is integrity in our business, because if you don't have integrity, you won't execute all the other values when people aren't paying attention. You'll be duplicitous and you'll just get a bad name in the industry. So, we do what we say we're going to do. And if we mess something up, I often forget stuff. I mess stuff up. I'm open about that. I call it out and I say, this is where I mess something up. All right. So in a service business, I've seen, back in 2008, you had the big crash, big economic issue, and I had a team of 4 people, and man, my throat is so dry. I don't know why. Man, I need to drink like hot tea before these podcasts. Like sometimes I'm great and everything's great, and then other times it just like all falls apart. I don't know why. So as I said, right off the bat in 2008, I was running a team of 5 service techs, and I was sitting there trying to get everything working, right? Because you've got corporate mandates of you got to reduce energy, or you got to reduce cost. You've got to save money. And so there I am like, oh crap, I've got to reduce cost. I got to save money. And at the same time, you've got people sitting there and they're freezing capital projects. And it's like, okay, what can we do? How can we keep our folks employed? How can we keep everyone busy? Well, the first thing was transparency. I was transparent to the team about, hey, corporate wants us to reduce operational costs. So we really need to be at this level of performance. And by telling them we need to be able to bill out this percentage of service calls, we need to have this much in our backlog and forelog, then what that enabled us to do is, one, it was transparent. The team knew what we were being measured by, and then they could go perform. they could decide whether they wanted to step up and start selling upgrades, start selling change orders, things like that. But at the same time, when they would bring in opportunities, man, I might have to cut this podcast short. I don't know what is going on with my throat today. I was camping, like I said, this past weekend, and I may have picked up a bug. But what happened was they would bring deals to me that weren't in the best interest of the customer. And that's where integrity took place. We had to make a decision of, okay, we could probably sell an upgrade to the school, and that would be some work and it would keep us busy. But was that a good use of their money? And, when things are good, it's super easy to be like, yeah, it's not a good use of their money. We shouldn't be selling them that. But when you're, living week to week because you don't know what's coming down the road, that's when it gets tough. When you're like, okay, we're going to turn down this upgrade, this software upgrade, because I know that's not a good use of the funds of the school. And we're just going to have to trust that comes back to us at some point. And so we would do things like energy upgrades. We did things like implementing operational efficiencies, teaching people how to go and execute their work better. We taught things like integrations to legacy systems so they could manage their systems with less people. Those were things, oh, excuse me, folks, I'm so sorry, that we were able to go and sell. And then we had to pass on the stuff that didn't make a whole lot of sense. And it was at that time that I realized, we were living our values. We were living our culture. There was another instance, and I'm only using myself because I'm not going to throw any other organization under the bus. But, there was a time that I'm not particularly proud of. I took over an operations team, and there was a job with a large municipality customer, and they owed us $1 million for like 2 years because we hadn't properly implemented things. And under the pressure that I was under, I was just focused on how do I make this go away? And so rather than doing the right thing, which would have been, okay, I realize that going and digging in here is going to keep us from getting paid longer, but it's the right thing to do and it's going to cost us money. I just literally went through the commissioning checklist and checked the box. Oh, okay. You want that done? Okay. You want that done? Okay. Instead of going and being like, all right, this unit's undersized. This is an underfloor system. You don't have proper glazing on the glass. You've got 10-foot ceilings. There's no way that this can be efficiently controlled. And calling those things out and then bringing up engineering meetings, of which the engineer would have been pissed at me, the GC would have been pissed, the mechanical would have been pissed. And, doing all those things, I could have done that, and that would have been the right thing to do. The problem is, while that would have been the right thing to do, that also would have delayed us being paid. That would have gone and made the GC, the mechanical, the engineer of record, all of them look bad. So at the end of the day, I just went through the commissioning checklist and called it a day. So I'm not particularly proud of that, but the reality is that, sometimes you go and you do things that aren't aligned with core values and culture. And that was an example. We had a culture, but that culture was focused on profitability, revenue in the door, and moving on to the next customer. And because of that, I lived up to that culture. At the end of the day, that's still my responsibility. No one makes you do anything. I mean, like I was talking to my son driving back, from the camping trip, and we were talking about how no one makes you do anything. Like, even if someone put a gun to your head, you still have a choice, right? You can get shot or you do what they say, but you still have a choice. And this was one of those instances where I had a choice. It would have been painful, probably would have stalled my career out, but I made the choice I made, and yeah, it is what it is. I learned from it, but yeah. What else? So at the end of the day, people are going to perform to whatever standard you set them to. So if I'm you and you've listened so far to these 20 plus minutes here of me trying not to cough and trying to explain culture in a roundabout way to you, at the end of the day, I would sum it up to this. Culture is just the ethos of which your team or company is going to operate by. It's important to sit down and actually spend some time defining this. It's established by your vision. It's established by your values. But most importantly, it's established by your examples. You living out the culture and values on a day-to-day basis and making the hard decisions because you believe enough in these values and this vision that you're willing to accept the consequences of the hard decisions. Letting people go who are great performers but are not aligned culturally and are being toxic to the team. Or going and standing up in a project meeting and saying, look, I know we all want to get off the job. I know we're all underwater here, but we're not doing the right thing. And this is the right thing we need to do. And knowing that that might get the GC to send an email to your regional GM or your regional ops manager complaining about you. And next thing you know, you're on a performance plan because you did the right thing. But you did the right thing at the end of the day. So you've got to, sit there and figure out like what is the right thing to do. And then you've got to live that right thing. It's a lot easier when it comes from the top down. And hopefully those of you who are aspiring to be managers, those of you who lead your own businesses hear this. You could probably attest some of the fastest growing businesses that I've done business with have very clear visions, very, very clear values, and they live those values. And yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. A little different than normal, but it's something that was top of mind, something that I felt needed to be discussed. I'll try to pull my wife in and actually have her do a deeper dive on this because this is her bailiwick, of which she is an expert. So as always, everything is available, podcast.smartbuildingsacademy.com/352. Once again, that's podcast.smartbuildingsacademy.com/352. I hope you found this valuable, and I hope that you took some stuff out of this. I'd love to see what you took out of this in the comments. If you'd like more discussions like this, the stream of consciousness on issues that I think make a business successful or not, let me know. If you thought it was a turd, let me know. Like I said, I believe in transparency. I believe in feedback, and not going to hurt my feelings either way. Thanks so much for being here. I look forward to interacting with you all in the future, and I'll see you all on Wednesday, and we'll be talking through what's going on with a career. We'll talk about how you can go and systemize your building automation career, how you can go and figure out exactly what you want to do and then create a system that will get you there in the shortest amount of time possible. All right, folks, thanks so much for being here. I will talk to you all on Wednesday, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.